I used to believe my marriage was unbreakable. I was wrong. 21 years. That's how long Sophia and I had been married. 21 years of Saturday morning coffee on the porch, watching the sun paint our suburban street gold. 21 years of anniversary dinners at Romano's, where Giuseppe still remembered our first date. 21 years that our friends called relationship goals at every gathering, holding us up as proof that real love still existed. I'm Daniel Reed, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Logistics manager at Branson. Industries, pulling 60-hour weeks but proud of the stability I provided. The 4-bedroom colonial we'd bought 15 years ago paid down to half its mortgage. The knowledge that when I came home exhausted from untangling supply chain disasters, Sophia would be there with her warm smile and that way she had of making everything feel manageable. She worked at Meridian Marketing, a mid-sized firm downtown. Matthew Reynolds ran her department, a smooth-talking executive who Sophia described as supportive and understanding. She'd mention how Matthew encouraged her ideas, unlike my rigid thinking about schedules and plans. I never thought much of it. Why would I? This was Sophia. My Sophia. Our last vacation haunts me now. 2 weeks in Costa Rica 3 months ago. She'd seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly, claiming urgent client emails. Matthew needs this campaign perfect, she'd said, typing furiously by the pool. I'd kissed her forehead and told her to relax. That work would survive without her. She'd given me this strange look, almost pitying, before returning to her screen. That Saturday afternoon started like hundreds before it. Sophia was at her sister's baby shower. I was catching up on yard work, fighting the spring weeds that threatened our flower beds. The headache came suddenly, sharp enough that I needed aspirin immediately. Sophia's purse sat on the kitchen counter, where she'd forgotten it. Designer leather she'd bought herself for Christmas. I reached inside for the small pill bottle she always carried. My fingers found it, along with something else. Something that shouldn't have been there. A fresh pack of condoms. The receipt was still attached, purchased 3 days ago. We hadn't used condoms in 15 years. Not since her IUD. I stood there, holding that package, my hands trembling, knowing that everything I believed about my life was about to change forever. The condoms burned in my pocket for 3 days. Every conversation with Sophia became a minefield of hidden meanings. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every touch made my skin crawl with questions I couldn't ask. "You're quiet lately," she mentioned. Tuesday morning, applying lipstick in our bathroom mirror. New lipstick. When had she started wearing that shade? "Just work stress," I managed, watching her reflection. "Big shipment problems from the Seattle warehouse." She nodded absently, adjusting her dress. Another new purchase I hadn't noticed before. "I'll be late tonight. Matthew has us all staying. For the Henderson presentation prep," she added casually. Matthew. The name sat in my mouth like poison. That evening, I did something I'd never imagined. I became an investigator in my own marriage. Credit card statements revealed charges I didn't recognize. The Riverside Hotel downtown, $47 for lunch on a day she'd claimed to be eating salads at her desk. Nordstrom purchases far exceeding what appeared in our closet. Restaurant receipts for 2 at places I'd never heard of. The evidence accumulated, like snow before an avalanche. Late nights that didn't align with her department's actual meetings. The gym membership she'd started but never seemed to use, though she left the house in workout clothes twice a week. Her phone, suddenly password protected and always face down during meals. Thursday night, she came home glowing. Actually glowing. With this energy I hadn't seen in years. She kissed me. Really kissed me, and suggested we open a bottle of wine. As she laughed at some story from her day, gesturing with her glass, I realized I was looking at a stranger wearing my wife's face. The next morning, I called Tom, a lawyer friend from my golf club. "I need a private investigator," I said without preamble. "Someone discreet, someone good." Tom's pause told me he understood. "Jack Thompson. No relation despite the name. He's handled several situations for my clients. I'll text you his number," he replied carefully. Jack Thompson answered on the second ring. His voice was gravelly, matter-of-fact. "Mr. Reed, I know this is difficult. I'll need some basic information to start surveillance," he said. I gave him everything: her schedule, Matthew Reynolds' name, the hotel charges. Each detail felt like another nail in my marriage's coffin. "Give me 2 weeks," Jack said. "I'll document everything. Photos, times, locations. Whatever's happening, you'll have proof." Those 2 weeks stretched like torture. I became an actor in my own home, playing the role of oblivious husband while memorizing every lie she told. She worked late Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. She had client dinners Tuesday and Friday. She went to yoga Saturday mornings, all lies, every single one. When Jack Thompson finally called, his words were careful but direct. "I have everything you need, but you're not going to like what you see," he warned. When Jack handed me that manila envelope, I knew that opening it would end my marriage, but I had to know the truth. The photos spread across Jack Thompson's desk like crime scene evidence. My wife entering the Riverside Hotel with Matthew Reynolds, his hand on her lower back. The two of them at Café Lumiere, leaning across the table, fingers intertwined. Matthew leaving my house, my own house, at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when I was at work. 8 months, Jack said quietly. Based on the patterns, this has been going on for at least 8 months. 8 months of Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the Riverside. 8 months of lunch meetings that were intimate meals at upscale restaurants. 8 months of them in my bed while I worked overtime to pay for the life she was sharing with another man. The worst photo showed them on my porch, kissing like teenagers while I was traveling to Detroit for a supply chain conference last month. She told me she missed me that night, sent me heart emojis. "Matthew Reynolds is married," Jack continued, sliding another folder forward. "Wife's name is Linda. 2 kids, 17 and 14. He's got as much to lose as you do." I studied Matthew's information with the detachment of planning a military. Operation: Senior Vice President at Meridian Marketing, 6-figure salary, house in Westfield worth twice mine, country club membership, the perfect suburban success story built on lies. "What's your next move?" Jack asked. "I need a lawyer first," I answered. Rebecca came highly recommended, a specialist in high-asset divorces who'd earned her reputation destroying cheating spouses in court. Her office radiated power, floor-to-ceiling windows, leather and mahogany, photos with state senators. "The prenup you signed is your best friend right now," she said, reviewing our documents. "Adultery clause is clear. She forfeits claim to the house and half the joint assets. With this evidence, she won't get a penny beyond her own 401k and personal property." "What about timing?" I asked. "Don't tip your hand. Let them think they're safe. Document everything. The more evidence we have, the less room she has to maneuver," Rebecca advised. Her smile was sharp. "I've seen her type before. They always think they're smarter than they are. I spent the next week preparing with methodical precision. Copied every photo, every receipt, every piece of evidence into multiple sets. Researched Linda through social media, a real estate agent with her own successful agency, active in school committees, proud mother posting about her kids' achievements. While her husband screwed my wife, the employee handbook for Meridian Marketing sat on my desk, highlighted and annotated. Section 7.3. Romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and subordinates are strictly prohibited and will result in immediate termination. Both signatures at the bottom, Matthew Reynolds and Sophia Reed. I opened new bank accounts, in my name only, ready to transfer funds the moment I pulled the trigger. Changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance. Consulted with a locksmith about emergency lock changes. Every detail planned, every contingency covered. At home, I became the perfect husband. Asked about Sophia's stressful projects with concern. Rubbed her shoulders when she complained about long days. Even suggested she take a spa day to relax, watching her lie about going with her sister when I knew she'd spend it with Matthew. Saturday morning, she made French toast, my favorite, humming in the kitchen like a woman without guilt. "You've been so understanding about my crazy schedule," she said, kissing my cheek. "Matthew says the big project will wrap up soon." "Take all the time you need," I replied, meaning it. Every lie she told was another nail in her coffin. Jack Thompson's call came Tuesday afternoon. "They're at your house right now. Do you want to catch them in the act?" he asked urgently. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency and left work immediately. Time to end this charade forever. The 15-minute drive home stretched into eternity. Every red light gave me time to think about what I was about to do. 21 years of marriage about to end in 15 minutes of destruction. My hands were steady on the wheel, since I'd made my decision. I stopped at Wells Fargo first, withdrawing copies of evidence from my safe deposit box. Then a quick detour to my trunk where I'd kept my father's Louisville Slugger for the past week. Not for violence, I wasn't that man, but as a reminder of the lessons he'd taught me about standing up for yourself, about never letting anyone make you small in your own home. Matthew's Mercedes sat in my driveway like a declaration of war. The same car he'd parked there dozens of times while I earned the money that paid for the house he was defiling. I photographed it from 3 angles, checking the timestamp. 2:33 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, right on schedule. The front door opened silently. I'd oiled the hinges Sunday night while Sophia slept. Their voices drifted down from upstairs. Her laugh, the one I used to love, mixed with his deeper chuckle. The sound of my bedroom door ajar, the bed creaking in a rhythm that made my stomach turn. But I didn't rush. Rush implied emotion, and I was beyond that now. I set evidence packets on the kitchen counter, the dining room table, the living room coffee table, placed my phone on the hallway table, video recording, retrieved the baseball bat from the porch, feeling its familiar weight. Every step calculated, every action deliberate. The stairs didn't creak. I knew which ones to avoid after 2 decades of late-night trips to the kitchen. Their voices grew clearer. Matthew saying something about, "When I leave Linda." Sophia responding. With Daniel so predictable he'd never suspect. My name in their mouths while they lay in my bed. The contempt in her voice when she said predictable. I stood outside my bedroom door for 60 seconds, counting each one. This was it. The moment that would divide my life into before and after. Inside that room was evidence of the greatest betrayal I'd ever experienced, but also my liberation. The door swung open. They didn't notice at first, too wrapped up in each other to hear the hinges. Matthew saw me first, his eyes going wide, scrambling for the sheets. Sophia turned, and for one beautiful moment, I saw real fear in her eyes. Then, it transformed into something else, contempt, amusement. She actually smirked. "Well," she said, pulling the sheet up with casual arrogance, "I guess the cat's out of the bag." Matthew tried to stand, reaching for his pants. "Daniel, listen, this isn't—" he started frantically. "Sit down, Matthew," I commanded. My voice came out steady, controlled. He sat. Sophia laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, come on, Daniel, don't be dramatic. We're all adults here," she said dismissively. She tilted her head, studying me. "You can either accept this arrangement or I'll destroy you in divorce court. I'll take the house, half your pension, everything. You know I will," she threatened. Matthew found his confidence again, probably encouraged by her casual cruelty. "She's too much woman for you anyway, Dan. Maybe this is better for everyone," he added with a smirk. They both smiled. Smiled at me in my own bedroom, in my own bed, like I was the punchline to their private joke. I pulled the first evidence packet from behind my back and tossed it on the bed between them. "Actually," I said quietly, "I have a different arrangement in mind." Their laughter died when they saw the photos, but they had no idea this was just the beginning. The photos scattered across the rumpled sheets, them entering hotels, kissing in restaurants, Matthew leaving my house. Sophia's smirk evaporated as she recognized the Tuesday afternoon timestamp on her car in our driveway, while Matthew's Mercedes sat beside it. "You hired someone to follow me?" she demanded, her voice pitching higher with indignation replacing arrogance. 8 months, Sophia. You've been bringing him into our bed for 8 months, I stated flatly. Matthew lunged for his clothes, trying to dress while backing toward the door. I'm leaving. This is between you two, he said desperately. No, I interrupted, stepping aside but holding the baseball bat loose in my hand. You're going to sit there and listen. You can't keep me. Here, he protested. Section 7.3 of Meridian Marketing's Employee Handbook, I said conversationally. Romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates are strictly prohibited. I have copies for HR plus these photos plus hotel receipts you expensed. To the company. His face went white. You wouldn't, he stammered. The packet will be delivered within the hour, I informed him. Sophia tried tears next, her manipulation playbook opening to Chapter 2. Daniel, please, we can work through this. It was a mistake. I love you, she pleaded. The prenup you signed specifically addresses adultery. You forfeit the house and half the marital assets. Rebecca has already prepared the paperwork. I cut her off. Rebecca? She gasped, the tears stopping instantly. She knew that name. Everyone in our social circle did. You can't afford her, she accused. Actually, she took the case at a discount. Apparently, she really enjoys destroying cheaters who mock their spouses, I replied. Matthew made another move for the door. This time, I let him reach the hallway before catching his shoulder. He swung wildly, a soft man's punch from someone who'd never been in a real fight. I dropped him with 2 precise hits, solar plexus, then jaw, not enough to cause real damage, but sufficient to send him stumbling down the stairs, gasping. Your wife, Linda, will have her packet within the hour, I called after him. Drive safe, Matthew. The front door slammed. His Mercedes peeled out of my driveway for the last time. Sophia had used my distraction to start dressing, frantically pulling on clothes. You're making a mistake, she hissed. I'll tell everyone you're abusive. I'll say you hit me too, she threatened. Everything's on video, including Matthew attacking me first, I said, holding up my phone. You have 1 hour to pack what you can carry. The locks change at 5. You can't just throw me out. I have rights, she screamed. You had rights. You forfeited them 8 months ago, I responded coldly. I pulled out another packet. Copies of everything have already gone to your parents, your sister, and our mutual friends, with a cover letter explaining why you're no longer welcome in this house. Her face cycled through rage, desperation, bargaining, and finally spite. You think you're some kind of hero? You're pathetic, Daniel. I needed a real man. She spat. And you chose Matthew Reynolds? I laughed, genuinely laughed. A man who cheats on his wife and children, who runs away the moment things get difficult? That's your definition of a real man? I asked. She threw things into suitcases with violent efficiency, muttering threats about lawyers, about social humiliation, about how I'd regret this. I followed at a distance, ensuring she only took her belongings. At 4:47, she stood at the front, door with 3 suitcases and tears that might have been real. 21 years, Daniel. Doesn't that mean anything? She asked softly. It meant everything to me. That's why this betrayal is unforgivable, I answered. You'll never find anyone who loved you like I did, she said, trying one last manipulation. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who'd shared my bed while planning afternoons with another man, who'd laughed at my predictability while spending my money, who'd just tried to manipulate me with tears, threats, and finally, false nostalgia. You never loved me, Sophia. You loved what I provided while you shopped for something better, I replied with finality. She left without another word. I watched her struggle to fit the suitcases into her car, refusing to help. The locksmith arrived as her taillights disappeared. By evening, Matthew and Sophia had both been terminated from Meridian Marketing. Linda Thompson had called me, crying, thanking me for the truth. My phone buzzed with messages from friends who'd received my packets, some supportive, others shocked. I sat in my empty house, in the silence I'd earned, and felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Justice, I learned, isn't just about punishment. It's about watching the guilty face the consequences of their choices. 6 months later, I barely recognized the man who discovered those condoms in his wife's purse. That man was soft, trusting, predictable. The man I am now understands the difference between kindness and weakness, between forgiveness and enabling. Sophia moved back to Oregon to live with her parents. The last I heard through mutual friends, she was working part-time at a local marketing firm, making a third of her previous salary. Her reputation in our industry is radioactive. Nobody wants to hire someone who screwed their boss and got caught. She tried contacting me once, 3 months ago, with a long email about forgiveness and second chances. I deleted it unread. Matthew Reynolds' fall was even more complete. Linda took him for everything in the divorce. The house, half his retirement, substantial alimony. His teenage kids won't speak to him. He works at a small firm in Connecticut now, commuting 3 hours daily because he can't afford rent closer to work. Someone sent me his LinkedIn profile where he describes himself as a seasoned marketing professional seeking new opportunities. The recommendations section is tellingly empty. Linda Thompson and I had coffee last month. Not romantic, just two. People who'd been betrayed by the same affair, comparing notes and finding closure. She told me Matthew had tried to blame me for ruining his life. We laughed about that. I didn't ruin anything. I just revealed the truth. My house feels different now. Bigger, certainly, but also cleaner somehow. I replaced the bedroom furniture, painted the walls, made it mine instead of ours. Saturday mornings, I still drink. Coffee on the porch, but now I read books I'd always wanted to explore. I joined a hiking club, started learning Spanish, took up woodworking in the garage. Things Sophia had called boring or pointless. I'm dating again, cautiously. Her name is Elena, a divorced accountant who understands the value of honesty. We're taking things slow, both of us carrying scars but not letting them define us. She knows my story, has seen the photos I kept as reminders. Most people would have just accepted it or exploded, she told me once. You got justice, some mutual. Friends initially criticized my vindictiveness, saying I should have handled things privately, but the evidence was too compelling, the betrayal too complete. Those who matter understood. Those who didn't weren't friends worth keeping. Tom invited me to golf last week. You look good, Dan. Lighter somehow, he observed. Amazing what happens when you remove 120 pounds of dead weight from your life, I replied. Sophia? He asked with a knowing smile. And all the bullshit that came with her, I confirmed. The man I was before would have forgiven her, tried counseling, accepted partial. Blame for driving her away, that man would have been weak. The man I am now knows that some betrayals are unforgivable. Some lines cannot be uncrossed, and some people deserve the full weight of consequences. My father's baseball bat sits in my office now, mounted on the wall. Not as a threat, but as a reminder that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even when it means destroying everything you thought you had to build something better. I sleep better now than I have in years, knowing that liars face the truth and cheaters pay the price. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. My name is Logan Pierce, and I'm 36 years old. 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a solid career as a regional sales manager at Horizon Logistics, pulling in $84,000 a year. Not rich, but comfortable. I owned a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood, bought it 2 years before I got married, back when I was still naive enough to believe in happily ever after. I had a wife who smiled when I came home from business trips, who kissed me goodbye every morning, who made our house feel like a home. Her name is Claire. Was Claire, I should say. She's 34, with auburn hair that catches the light just right and green eyes that used to make my heart skip. We met 4 years ago through mutual friends at a barbecue. She was laughing at something ridiculous, head thrown back, completely unself-conscious. I knew I wanted to marry her before our second date. We dated for a year before I proposed. Small wedding, nothing fancy, just family and close friends. Those first 2 years of marriage felt like a dream. Claire worked as an administrative assistant at a dental office, and I remember how she'd text me throughout my business trips, sending photos of dinner she'd made or some project she was working on. When I'd walk through the front door after 3 or 4 days in Denver or Phoenix or Seattle, she'd light up like I was the best part of her day. 2 years into our marriage, Claire quit her job. She said she was tired of office politics, tired of dealing with demanding patients and a micromanaging boss. She wanted to focus on making our home a sanctuary, as she put it. I supported her decision completely. We could afford it on my salary, and if it made her happy, it made me happy. Happy wife, happy life, isn't that what they say? My job required travel 8 to 10 days a month. Regional sales means visiting clients, negotiating contracts, maintaining relationships across 3 states. I'd hit Denver for 2 days, Phoenix for 3, sometimes Seattle for a week. Claire seemed perfectly content with this arrangement. She filled her days with yoga classes, shopping trips, home improvement projects. She'd spend hours rearranging furniture, painting accent walls, turning our house into something that belonged in a magazine. What made it easier was that Claire had family nearby. Her older sister Natalie lived 20 minutes away with her husband Luke and their 2 kids. Natalie Carter, she kept her maiden name professionally, is 37, and everything Claire isn't. Where Claire is soft and domestic, Natalie is sharp and ambitious. She's a corporate attorney pulling in $160 a year, working 60-hour weeks, always impeccably dressed and completely in control. Luke Carter is Natalie's husband of 9 years, 39 years old, and for the past year, unemployed. He got laid off from some mid-level marketing position and spent his days between opportunities, which seemed to mean sitting on their couch playing video games while Natalie worked herself to death. During family dinners, Natalie would talk about her latest case while Luke sat quietly, picking at his food, contributing nothing to the conversation. I never paid much attention to Luke. He seemed harmless enough, if a bit lazy and unmotivated. The kind of guy who lets his wife carry the financial burden while he figures himself out. Claire and Natalie talked every day, sometimes for hours. They'd been close since childhood, and I was glad my wife had that support system while I traveled. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. Claire would kiss me goodbye, tell me she'd miss me, remind me to text when I landed. She'd send me photos of her day, coffee shop visits, yoga class, dinner with Natalie and the kids. I'd call every night, and we'd talk about nothing important. My work, her day, plans for the weekend. I thought I knew my life. I thought I knew my wife. I was about to discover I knew neither. The first sign wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a lipstick stain or a suspicious text. It was a smell. Cologne I didn't wear, lingering in my house after a 3-day trip to Dallas. I walked through the front door on a Thursday evening, dragging my suitcase, and something felt wrong. Not bad wrong, just different. The house smelled like someone else had been there. Masculine cologne, woody and expensive. Not mine. I wear Old Spice. This was something else entirely. "Hey, babe," Claire called from the kitchen, appearing with a glass of wine and that same bright smile. "How was Dallas?" "Fine," I answered, still processing the smell. "House smells different." She laughed, the sound light and dismissive. "I bought a new air freshener. Sandalwood something." "Too strong?" she asked. Plausible. Easy to accept. I kissed her hello and forgot about it. But the anomalies kept coming. After a trip to Phoenix, I found 2 wine glasses in the sink instead of 1. When I asked, Claire explained that her friend Sarah had come over for dinner. Made sense. Sarah was always dropping by unannounced. After Seattle, the bed was made differently than Claire usually made it. She was casual about bed making, just pulling the comforter up and calling it done. But this time it had hospital corners, crisp and tight. When I mentioned it, she laughed and said she'd watched a YouTube video about proper bed-making techniques. After Denver, there were dishes in the sink that weren't there when I left. A coffee mug I didn't recognize. A plate with crumbs from food we didn't have in the house. The living room furniture was arranged slightly differently. The coffee table moved 6 inches closer to the couch, throw pillows repositioned. Each explanation was reasonable in isolation. Claire had friends over. She was trying new things. She was redecorating. But together, they formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. I'd lie awake at night, Claire sleeping peacefully beside me, and wonder if I was losing my mind. Was I paranoid? Jealous without cause? I'd traveled for work for years without suspicion. Why was I suddenly seeing threats in wine glasses and cologne? I considered confronting her directly. But what would I say? I think you're cheating because you made the bed differently. I'd sound insane. I didn't want to be that husband. Suspicious, accusatory, poisoning my marriage with paranoia. Then came the Portland trip. 4 days in late September, meeting with a major client who could triple our West Coast contracts. The night before I left, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to an electronics store and bought a small wireless camera, motion-activated, HD quality, with smartphone connectivity. The kind of thing people use for home security. I told the salesperson I wanted to keep an eye on the house while traveling. Not a lie, technically. I hid it in the living room bookshelf, angled to capture the front door and most of the main floor. Small enough to be invisible, positioned behind some books. If nothing happened, I'd remove it and never mention it. If something did happen, well, I'd deal with that when the time came. Monday morning, I kissed Claire goodbye, rolled my suitcase to the car, and flew to Portland. During my first day of meetings, I forced myself not to check the camera. I was probably wrong. I was probably paranoid. There would be nothing to see. Tuesday at lunch, sitting in a restaurant overlooking the Columbia River, I finally opened the camera app on my phone. Motion-activated clips from the past day. Morning footage showed Claire making coffee, doing yoga, normal domestic routine. Then I reached the 3:32 p.m. clip. The doorbell rang. Claire answered, and my world collapsed. A man entered my house, my brother-in-law, Luke Carter. They hugged, too long, too close, too familiar. They moved to the couch, talking, laughing. Claire's hand rested on Luke's arm in a way that spoke of intimacy, of routine. At 3:47 p.m., Luke leaned in and kissed her. Claire didn't pull away. She kissed him back like she meant it. At 4:10 p.m., they walked upstairs together, out of camera view. Luke didn't leave until 6:45 p.m. I sat in that restaurant bathroom for 20 minutes, watching the footage over and over, feeling physically sick. My wife, her sister's unemployed husband, in my house, in my bed, most likely. I saved everything to cloud storage, deleted nothing. Returned to my meeting on autopilot, shaking hands and discussing logistics, while my mind raced through implications. How long had this been going on? Every time I traveled? Every excuse? Every explanation? Every kiss goodbye? All of it lies. I didn't confront Claire when I got home. Not yet. I needed more than one incident. I needed undeniable proof. I had 5 days to plan before my next scheduled trip. 5 days to prepare for the performance of my life. 5 days before I'd make them both understand what happens when you betray the wrong man. My next business trip was scheduled for the following Monday. 5 days in San Francisco for a major client presentation. 5 days that would give Claire and Luke plenty of time to continue their affair. Except this time, I wouldn't be in San Francisco. I'd be 2 miles away, watching every moment. The 2 weeks between discovering the camera footage and my planned confrontation were the longest of my life. I had to act completely normal around Claire. Kiss her goodbye in the mornings, text her during the day, come home and ask about her day while knowing exactly how she'd spent her afternoon. She was either an exceptional liar or genuinely didn't believe she was doing anything wrong. This realization chilled me more than the affair itself. When she kissed me, there was no guilt in her eyes, no shame, no recognition that she was destroying our marriage every time I left town. I prepared methodically. First, I called my boss and explained I had a family emergency, requesting the week off while maintaining the appearance of the San Francisco trip. He agreed without question. I'd never taken unplanned time off. I researched divorce law in our state. The house was my premarital asset. Claire had no legal claim to it. Our joint savings account contained $44,000. I was legally entitled to half. I transferred $22,000 to a separate account I'd opened. I contacted a divorce attorney and scheduled a consultation for the day after my planned confrontation. I backed up all camera footage to multiple cloud accounts. I purchased a burner phone for documentation. I planned my route from the motel to my house. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. I timed it 3 times. Monday morning arrived. I performed my usual departure routine with Academy Award precision. Kissed Claire goodbye at the kitchen counter. Told her I'd text when I landed. Rolled my suitcase to the car while she watched from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, probably already anticipating Luke's arrival. I drove to a downtown parking garage, left my car, and took an Uber to the Riverside Motel, a dive establishment 2 miles from my house. The room smelled like cigarettes and industrial disinfectant, but it was perfect. Close enough to reach my house in minutes, far enough that no one would think to look for me there. I settled onto the sagging mattress and opened the camera app. Empty living room. Waiting. Monday morning passed with normal domestic activity. Claire doing yoga, making lunch, watching television. I forced myself to eat a protein bar, though my stomach was churning with anticipation. At 2:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. My entire body went rigid. Claire opened the door and Luke entered, carrying a bottle of wine like he was visiting friends. They embraced immediately, not the casual hug of in-laws, but the desperate embrace of lovers who'd been counting the hours. I watched with cold fury as they kissed in my entryway, pawing at each other's clothes with shameless hunger. They didn't even make it to the couch first this time. They were too desperate, too eager, stumbling toward the stairs like teenagers. At exactly 3:20 p.m., I grabbed my keys and drove home. My heart was hammering, but my mind was crystal clear. I parked down the street and approached my house on foot. The front door was unlocked. They'd been too frantic to think about security. I could hear them upstairs as I stood in my own entryway. Unmistakable sounds. My wife and her sister's husband in my bed. Every muscle in my body was coiled with controlled rage. I climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately, each step measured. The bedroom door was wide open, arrogant in their carelessness. I stood in the doorway for exactly 3 seconds, watching Claire naked beneath Luke in the bed I'd bought, in the house I'd built, in the marriage I'd believed in. Then I moved. Oh, shit! Luke saw me first, his eyes going wide with animal terror. But I was already across the room, grabbing him by the arm and yanking him off my wife with enough force to send him crashing to the floor. Claire screamed my name, clutching the sheet to her chest, but her voice was white noise. My focus was singular. Luke tried to crawl away, but I kicked him hard in the ribs. The crack echoed through the room. He gasped, curling into a fetal position. "You thought you could have my wife in my house?" I said, my voice ice. No yelling, no screaming, just cold, absolute control. I kicked him again, this time in the groin. Luke's scream was primal, high-pitched. He was trying to speak, choking out, I'm sorry," but words were meaningless now. I grabbed him by the hair, hauled him to his feet, and punched him square in the jaw. His head snapped back. Blood sprayed across my carpet in my house, where he'd been meeting my wife. "Get out!" I ordered, shoving him toward the door. "If I ever see you again, I'll kill you." The words weren't a threat. They were a promise. Luke stumbled down the stairs, still naked, blood streaming from his nose, grabbing his scattered clothes from the living room floor. He fled out the front door like the coward he was. I turned to Claire. She was sobbing, mascara running, trying to explain. "It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake, please." Get dressed. Get out, I commanded. This is my home, she protested. No, I replied flatly. This is my home. I bought it before we married. My name, my mortgage. You have zero legal claim. You have 10 minutes before I call the police for trespassing. The finality in my voice broke through her denial. She scrambled to dress, grabbed her phone and purse, and ran. I stood in my empty house, the silence deafening after months of lies. Then I called my attorney. 2 hours after Claire fled my house, someone pounded on my front door. Bang, 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 aggressive and demanding. I knew who it was before I opened it. Natalie stood on my porch, face red with fury, still wearing her courtroom suit from whatever case had consumed her day. "Logan, what the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded. Behind her controlled exterior, I could see the rage of a successful woman who wasn't used to family drama interrupting her perfectly ordered life. Claire had called her, obviously, probably sobbing about how her unreasonable husband had kicked her out over some stupid fight. "You need to fix this," she continued, pushing past me into my living room. "Claire is devastated. She's at my house crying her eyes out, and she won't tell me what happened except that you lost your mind and threw her out. This is insane, Logan. You don't just kick your wife out of her home." "Her home," I repeated quietly. "Yes, her home. You're married. This is community property. You can't just—" she argued. I walked to my laptop, opened it, and pressed play on the camera footage. Natalie's voice died mid-sentence as she watched her sister open our front door. Her expression shifted from anger to confusion as Luke entered the frame. Confusion to horror as they embraced. Horror to devastation as they kissed with desperate hunger. What is this?" she whispered. "That's your husband," I said, my voice flat. "Having intimacy with my wife, in my house, in my bed. Every time I leave town for work." Natalie's legs buckled. She collapsed onto my couch, the same couch where she'd watched her husband kiss her sister. Her hands were shaking. "I had no idea," she breathed. "I worked so much, I trusted him. I trusted her." She started crying. Not the controlled tears of a woman trying to maintain dignity, but raw, body-shaking sobs. For a moment, my anger dissipated into something like sympathy. Natalie had worked 60-hour weeks to support her family while her unemployed husband slept with her sister. She'd been betrayed just as completely as I had. "How long?" she managed to ask. "I don't know. I only found out last month, but the signs... It could have been going on for months," I answered. Natalie looked up at me, tears streaming down her face, and I saw the exact moment her grief hardened into something colder. The successful attorney who'd built her career destroying opposing counsel was about to turn those skills on her own husband. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I've already called my attorney, filing for divorce tomorrow. Claire gets nothing," I replied. Natalie nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Good," she said firmly. She stood, walked to the door, then paused. "Thank you for telling me. I deserved to know." "Yes, you did," I agreed. As she left, I saw the transformation in her eyes. The betrayed wife was gone, replaced by the predatory attorney who'd made a career of destroying people in courtroom combat. Luke had chosen the wrong woman to betray. The next week moved with surgical precision. My divorce was straightforward. Premarital assets, documented infidelity, no children to complicate custody. My attorney presented the evidence, camera footage, timeline of betrayals, proof that the house was mine before marriage. Claire didn't contest. She couldn't. She had no leverage and knew it. The settlement was brutal in its simplicity. I kept the house, my 401k, all investments. We split joint savings 50-50, $22,000 each, a fraction of what the betrayal had cost me emotionally. Claire walked away with nothing else. No alimony, no claim to my assets, nothing. But Claire's destruction was nothing compared to what Natalie unleashed on Luke. 1 week after discovering the affair, Natalie filed for divorce. She hired Barbara Westwood, a legendary attorney famous for bankrupting unfaithful spouses. Westwood's reputation was built on scorched-earth divorce settlements that left cheating husbands financially ruined. The discovery process was merciless. Natalie provided documentation of Luke's year-long unemployment, his complete financial dependence, his failure to contribute to household expenses or even seek meaningful employment. Combined with irrefutable evidence of the affair, I'd shared the camera footage, Luke had no defense. He tried to negotiate. Through his public defender, he couldn't afford a real attorney. Luke begged Natalie to be reasonable. "It was a mistake. I love you. I love the kids. Please don't destroy me," he pleaded. Natalie's response, delivered through Barbara Westwood, was devastating. "You should have thought about that before you f***ed my sister," she replied coldly. The final divorce settlement was a complete annihilation. Natalie received full custody of both children, ages 7 and 5. Luke's affair with her sister's wife proved moral unfitness as a parent. Natalie kept their house, worth $450,000. Natalie kept all investments, retirement accounts, and savings. Luke received no alimony. His unemployment and infidelity eliminated any claim to support. Luke was granted supervised visitation only, 2 hours every other Saturday, with a court-appointed supervisor present. Luke was required to pay child support despite having no substantial income. The court calculated payments based on his earning potential, not his current grocery store wages. Within 3 months, Luke had lost everything: his wife, his children, his home, his financial security, his dignity. He moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town, working night shifts stocking shelves at a grocery store for minimum wage. His parents, ashamed of his behavior, refused to help him financially. His children barely spoke to him during supervised visits, confused and hurt by his betrayal of their mother. Claire fared slightly better, but not much. She was waitressing at a chain restaurant, sharing a small apartment with a roommate. Her parents, conservative and religious, were horrified by the affair and cut off all financial support. Her social circle evaporated as word spread about her behavior. The woman who'd spent 4 years building the perfect home now served chicken wings to pay rent. Claire and Luke never contacted each other after the divorces were finalized. The affair that had seemed so worth the risk, so thrilling and romantic, ended with mutual resentment and blame. Each held the other responsible for their destruction. I attended both final divorce hearings, watched Claire sign the papers with shaking hands, watched Luke's lawyer explain that he was now legally obligated to pay child support he couldn't afford, felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The gavel came down. The judge declared both marriages legally dissolved. Claire and Luke walked out of the courthouse in opposite directions, strangers bound only by mutual destruction. And I walked out a free man. 3 months after the divorce, I moved out of the house where the betrayal occurred. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room held memories of the lies, the deception, the naive trust I'd placed in a woman who never deserved it. I sold it immediately after the divorce finalized, netting a substantial profit that I invested wisely. My new downtown condo is everything the house wasn't: modern, minimalist, untainted by the past. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the city skyline. Clean lines, expensive furniture, no family photos or sentimental decorations. It's a space that belongs entirely to me, free from the contamination of shared memories. Work is thriving. When my boss learned about my difficult personal situation, he was impressed by my professionalism throughout the crisis. Never missed a meeting, never let personal drama affect my performance. Last month, he promoted me to senior regional manager with a $15,000 raise. My travel schedule remains demanding, but now I return to an empty condo that feels like peace, not loneliness. I'm dating again, carefully and selectively. A few dinners, some second dates, nothing serious. I've learned to trust my instincts, to pay attention to red flags I once dismissed. Women find my story compelling, the wronged husband who handled his divorce with such strategic precision. I don't tell them the complete truth about what I did to Luke. Some details are better left unshared. Natalie and I stay in touch. Coffee meetings every few weeks where we talk about work, life, the strange bond that forms between people who survived the same destruction. There's no romance between us. We're both too damaged, too aware of how marriages can implode. But there's mutual respect, understanding, the recognition of shared experience. She's thrown herself into work and motherhood with impressive intensity. 60-hour weeks followed by soccer games and piano recitals, proving to her children that stability can exist even after betrayal. Her kids are adjusting well. Children are resilient when they have one strong parent who refuses to fall apart. Claire is still waitressing, still sharing that small apartment. Her Instagram, once filled with carefully curated photos of her perfect life, is now private and largely inactive. Her parents won't speak to her. Her friend circle has dwindled to almost nothing. She's 34, starting over from scratch, living the consequences of her choices. Luke is worse off. Night shift at the grocery store, barely making child support payments. His supervised visits with his kids are awkward and painful. His son barely acknowledges him. His daughter cries when it's time to leave. Natalie ensures the children understand their father made choices that hurt people, but she doesn't poison them against him. She doesn't have to. Luke's absence and failures speak for themselves. The affair that destroyed 2 marriages is now just mutual regret and blame. Claire and Luke never speak. The passion that seemed worth risking everything has curdled into bitter resentment. Justice, it turns out, is a dish best served through legal channels and social consequences. No violence required, just the systematic dismantling of lives through their own poor choices. 6 months have passed since I watched Claire sign our divorce papers with trembling hands. I'm sitting on my condo balcony this Sunday morning, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of gold and amber. The view never gets old. 32 floors above the noise and chaos, clean air and infinite possibility stretching out before me. I think about the man I was a year ago. Logan Pierce, the trusting husband who believed in marriage vows and happy endings, who came home from business trips expecting honesty and finding performance, who noticed small inconsistencies and wondered if he was going crazy. That man was naive, but he wasn't weak. When the betrayal was revealed, he didn't collapse. He strategized. The transformation wasn't instant. Those first few weeks after discovering the camera footage, I felt like I was drowning. Every conversation with Claire was agony. Knowing what I knew while pretending everything was normal. Every kiss goodbye was poison. Every "I love you" was a knife twist. But somewhere in that darkness, I found something stronger than heartbreak. I found resolve. Claire had made her choice. Luke had made his. I would make mine, and mine would be permanent. The revenge wasn't about anger, though anger certainly fueled it initially. It was about justice, about ensuring that people face the full weight of their decisions. Claire wanted to play house with her sister's husband while I paid the bills and played the fool. Fine. But she would do it without my house, my support, my protection from consequences. Luke wanted to destroy his marriage for afternoon intimacy with his wife's sister? Perfect. He could learn what life looks like when you lose a woman who actually worked while you played video games and messed around. I don't feel guilt about what I did to them. I feel satisfaction. The cold, permanent satisfaction of a man who refused to be a victim. My phone buzzes with a text from a woman I've been dating, Sarah, a marketing executive who travels as much as I do. We're having dinner tonight at a restaurant with a month-long waiting list. She's intelligent, successful, independent. She pays for her own meals and doesn't need me to provide her identity. I've learned to recognize the difference between a woman who wants a partner and one who wants a provider. Between genuine affection and performance designed to secure comfort. Between love and convenience. Claire is 34 now, serving chicken wings and splitting rent with a stranger. Luke is 39, stocking shelves and seeing his children 4 hours a month under supervision. Their choices led them exactly where they deserve to be. I'm 36, divorced, free. My wife betrayed me with her sister's husband in my house, in my bed. So I made sure they both paid for it with everything they had to lose. Some might call it cold. I call it justice, and I've never been happier.